it was the first time I realized that I don't believe there's a passion for law. The thing I was looking for the whole time.
That's so controversial, but
I feel that I'm a person who wants to jump from job to job, but it really, for me, I think it was more circumstantial than anything.
yeah.
And I've come to realize it over time. At first, I thought I just can't settle. But I feel that I'm a person who wants to jump from job to job, but it really, for me, I think it was more circumstantial than anything.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize it over time. At first, I thought I just can't settle.
Hi, everybody. My name is Letlhogonolo Nthodi. I am a practicing attorney, and today I'll be running today's Sisters in Conversations conversation with Atlegang, who is a return guest from the year 2021 to 2025. So this is a Where Are They Now conversation. Atlegang is an LLB graduate from UP and an LLM graduate from Wits. She is an all-round careerist, which we will get into as we progress with our conversation. And she does a lot of philanthropy, which is very fascinating to me, and we'll touch on that as we go. You tutor grade 8 students in Alexandra. You are in youth fellowship, and you just guide the youth in phenomenal ways. I'd like us to speak more about some of the non-profit foundations you founded, one of them being, please correct my pronunciation, Dumas?
Youth Dunamis.
Youth Dunamis. I was like, how do I say it? Youth Dumas or Youth Dumas? Yes. Atlegang, how are you? Please tell us a little bit about yourself for those guests who are new to the platform and wouldn't know your backstory.
Yeah. Thanks, first of all, for having me. No problem. And an extended thank you to Dimelo. She's not sure, but thank you as well. For those who don't know me, Atlegang. It's so hard to introduce yourself. You think, what the hell should I say?
Everything.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is that I love running.
Yeah, you are a fitness enthusiast.
I love running. I've always run, but this year I actually enjoy it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to run my first marathon in October.
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing High Rocks in 2 weeks, so that's another thing that I just decided to sign up for.
Yeah.
Grew up in a church sort of setup family. My dad's a pastor, my mom's a teacher. I've got 2 siblings from Pretoria. Grew up in a township called Garanga for people from Pretoria. I've been a Pretoria girl all my life, and I enjoyed living in Pretoria. I want to call it it was my character, it was my personality. I'm a girl from
most
Pretoria.
people in Pretoria.
Love music. Always say probably if I wasn't a lawyer, I'd do something in music. I'm not sure what, because I'm not talented. I'm not a talented singer, but I absolutely love music. You can't separate me from music. I learned to play the bass guitar for that reason, because I was like, I just want to be part of it.
Yeah.
So I love the bass. It's my favorite instrument. Just generally, my family is a very musical family as well. So I think that's also where that passion comes from. And I've already mentioned my fitness journey and stuff that I like and stuff that I'm going to participate in. That's a little bit about myself, is it? I'm married, don't have kids, but I want kids.
Yeah.
And I'm a lawyer. I guess that's why I'm here. Yeah, that's a bit about
I find
me.
it fascinating that you've managed to build a career in law, but cultivate all your interests, which is something that a lot of the youth is trying to get into.
Yeah.
So as a first port of call, I'd like to ask you how you've managed to cultivate your interests, being a bass guitarist, being passionate about fellowship, into a busy schedule as a senior associate in mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah. I mean, that took time, right?
Yeah.
Because at first I was just trying to find my feet in this profession, like everybody else, right? When I started working, I was very, very excited to start working. Finally, you finish your studies, and now you get an opportunity to employ what you've learned. Although you find out very quickly that practice is not really as technical as the books, right? And that there's so much that you learn that you don't learn at school. I just wanted to learn. That's it. I just wanted to finally be this lawyer. And so I think I took quite a lot of time just trying to be a lawyer. Like, I just want to be a lawyer. So I would say during the early stages of my career as a CA, and, even though I was jumping from job to job, I was really just trying to figure myself out as Atlegang the lawyer. And then at some point, because I could see that I was such a wanderer, trying to find myself as Atlegang as the lawyer, that maybe the issue wasn't the law. Maybe the thing that I was looking for wasn't the perfect place to be in where I felt I would thrive as a lawyer, but rather there were interests that I had outside of law that, because I wasn't entertaining, were making me feel like I don't have a purpose. So it almost made me feel like I studied law because I thought I would find my purpose in it, which, by the way, I have. I found a way to find my purpose in law. But because I let the things that I knew I liked or enjoyed, I let them sort of take a back seat. I was looking for it within the legal space. Then I realized that actually I don't have to find it in law. I can still I can still do those things and still be a lawyer. And these things can coexist at the same time. So I think that's why I think the first point for me to get to that point was when I went to the Concord. Because when I went to the Concord, yes, it's law, but I just saw how people could do the things that they still loved. Even how law could, it was the first time I realized that I don't believe there's a passion for law. The thing I was looking for the whole time.
That's so controversial, but go on.
I mean, for me, right? Because I was always looking for what's this thing, like I want my passion.
Yeah.
And I want to find the right area that I'm going to be passionate about, right? Then I realized that the law is the law and you have to love it either way. Whether you're doing pension, whether you're doing employment, whether you're doing constitution, because that's what we were doing at the Concord, right? Yeah. You couldn't pick and choose what type of matters you're going to work on. But the way you apply constitutional law to these various aspects of law is almost the same. So that's when it clicked that actually there's not a specific area that I'm going to find my passion. I could find it doing any type of law. So then I stopped chasing a specific type of law. I still had an interest to explore specifically admin law, public interest. I want to be honest, I am in M&A, but it wasn't a thing that I really wanted to do. Public law as well, that I wanted to explore. And when I got the M&A gig, right, it was like, okay, cool, fine. I'm here. I'll take the opportunity. At least I learned at the Concord that it doesn't matter which area of law I'm really practicing in. As long as I can enjoy the law, I will enjoy M&A. And true to form, I actually did thrive and enjoy what I was doing. I never thought I'd love corporate, but I love it. Today, I'm like so grateful that I got an opportunity to do it. But I think the thing that also kept me going was the fact that on the outside, I was doing my own thing. So I was happy. Like as an individual, if you gave me a tough time at work, but at least when I go home, I still feel like it doesn't matter. There's something that I'm doing that I'm enjoying or that I feel like is actually the passion that I was kind of trying to locate within the profession of law. In a way, I did, because I love law. I really do. But it wasn't in a specific area of law. Yeah. And most importantly, I've always wanted to help people. Why did you study law? That question, it was always to help people. Then I realized I don't have to necessarily do a specific, I don't have to specialize in a particular area of law that necessarily helps people, like human rights.
Yeah.
I can go and do work in an NGO that will help people and still do something like corporate, which I thought, look, all these people care about is money, and still have that balance, if that makes any sense.
Makes absolute sense.
I'm all over, but I'm just trying to say that there came a point where I was no longer chasing Atlegang the lawyer. I was the lawyer. So it was like, but what makes you happy? Because you're going to keep looking in all these other areas or these other environments and maybe not find it. And then I realized what did I enjoy doing growing up? Like music. What keeps me going? People. I love people. I want to help people. I want people to realize their dreams. I want them to do better. I want them to get out of their sticky situations, because I was able to get out my sticky situation. And I was like very willing to do it, like without anyone giving me anything. Like I'm happy doing what I'm doing right now because at least my job pays my bills and that's it. Yeah.
I think a very powerful takeaway from what you've just said is cultivate what cultivates you, like what makes you happy, what makes you passionate. But I think it can be very tricky when you're trying to be the lawyer first. And that's a big takeaway for me, that don't forget the things that make you who you are. They might just make you better at the thing that you do.
100%.
And I think sometimes we forget that what we do is not necessarily who we are, but something that we can enhance through the things that we bring organically to the table. It sort of makes me think of a book called Ikigai, and I think you figured that out, right? The author goes on to talk about vocation and devotion, and I think you sort of gotten your Ikigai, and I'm very happy for you. I'm very happy for you, and I hope our listeners can also get to that Ikigai and feel empowered that the things that they do outside of being a lawyer can make them a better lawyer.
Yeah.
My next question for you is audacity. Where do you get all this audacity to move around the way that you have to? I think from the stories that I've been exposed to of lawyers, yours is certainly the most unprecedented, from public law to M&A to the Concord to Toyota. Where do you get the courage? Where do you get the willpower to sort of say, I am taking an unconventional career decision, I'm sticking by it, and what I'm trying to do is figure out how it can enhance me as a professional? Yeah.
Where do I get the audacity? Well, I'll have to first start by saying that I acknowledge the privilege that I had, in the sense that I knew that if things don't work out, I have a backup, which is I can just go home and say, oh, it didn't work out, so I need a place to stay because I don't have money for rent, or, please help me pay for my car because I lost my job. I always thought to myself, I'll make these, at least at the early stage, when I first left my first job and went to Toyota, I was like, if it doesn't work out because I took a pay cut, it's fine, I'll rely on my parents. So the first thing there is to say, I knew there was a backup. So the question then is, if there wasn't a backup, would I have made the same decision? I don't know. I have to be honest. I absolutely don't know. But I always had this very strong sense of faith that it's going to work out. Either way, you know what? You got to sacrifice what you have now to be where you want to be tomorrow. So that sacrifice at the time was the pay cut. I was like, well, and I have to sell my car and. So even though I was relying on my parents, I knew that from a financial perspective, even the things I wanted to do for myself, I would have to put them on the back seat so that I can pursue this new route to see where it takes me. As for the other jobs, to be honest, it's just luck of the draw. I don't know what else to say. My husband always says, I think you're God's favorite child, because one thing you don't struggle is to find a job. And it's true. And my dad once said to me, he's like, I don't know, but because he's a pastor, right? So very faith-based and all of that. He said, I don't ever think you'll ever be in lack because of how you've served in the church and also your faith in God. And I've always carried that with me. Yeah. And I've seen over the years how God has carried me. I have to be honest. I feel like God has always been there. Whenever I'm okay, I need an answer, he answers. He really does. So it's been God. It's been the fact that I knew I had a backup. But most of the time, if I have to just be plain and honest, right? When I left, the Toyota gig was a contract. It wasn't a permanent job, so it was going to come to an end anyway. Either they were going to keep me, almost like your articles, or they were going to say your contract is over and then I must find a new job. Before that contract ended, I got into another contract. That third job that I had, it didn't take even 3 months before I got the Concord gig. So I knew that, I'm only going to be here for a year. And I was very grateful for the Concord, but the Concord was also a contract, right? So that meant I'm not going to stay there for long. I've got to find another one. And at the Concord, there were people who knew the right people to talk to if you wanted to be in a specific area. And at the time, I wanted to pursue public interest. So someone came to me and said, look, Richard Spoor is looking for an associate. Why don't you apply? And I applied, interviewed, I got in, but it was another contract. It wasn't a permanent job. So I knew, okay, when the contract comes, and it was a 6-month contract. That one was a 6-month contract. And I was so nervous. I'm like, why are they giving us 6-month contract? Is it because they don't want, is it like sort of like a probation?
Yeah.
And it was, for them it was. So I kind of knew. And in that 6 months, even though I felt like confident that they would renew the contract, I wasn't like set. I was like, maybe this is not the right thing, right? And then I got the job at ENS. And then that was sort of permanent. So all of that was like, you're going to move anyway, because these are all contracts. You understand? Like, a lot of people think I was just jumping at jobs, but I was literally in contracts from one place to another and hoping for the best. And when I got to ENS, I was grateful that at least it was a little bit more long-term.
Yes.
And so I could decide for myself, do I want to stay, do I want to leave? And that's why it is one of the jobs I've had where I stayed for the longest time. For me, that wasn't normal or usual. Not because I feel that I'm a person who wants to jump from job to job, but it really, for me, I think it was more circumstantial than anything.
Yeah.
And I've come to realize it over time. At first, I thought I just can't settle, but I don't think it's true of me. I think I can definitely settle. And it just so happened. So I hope that answers the question about audacity. I don't know if I have audacity. I think there were a lot of things that supported the things that I was doing at the time. And I was fortunate enough to get an exposure in all these different environments. And I don't know, maybe I presented myself in a certain way. And I do believe that that's what I was trying to achieve, right? I was trying to transition from IP into sort of admin law. However, I ended up back in IP. Wasn't so excited about it, but I was like, it's fine because it's still within the area of practice. And I feel like that's where you grow your skills develop and all of that. So I was happy to be in that type of environment. And then eventually when I got to the Concorders, I was like, this is what I've always wanted. It's got a combination of everything. And that is sort of where I think my opportunities expanded, exponentially. So, yeah.
I still do think it's audacity. I think you can have a plethora of opportunities before you and still say no out of fear, out of doubt, out of like sheer unconventionality. Like nobody else has done it. How could I do it? Those kinds of questions sort of plague you, especially early on in your career, especially when we're in the space where people ebb you towards trying to figure out your expertise sooner than later.
True.
And for you to just
very true.
Maneuver like that.
Yeah.
And my next question after that would then be, how did you leverage networking and mentorship in these transitions? Because I think it must have played some level of a role or contribution. Who was whispering in your ear? Who was aiding the moves at a more person level rather than God himself. To what degree did you sort of leverage your network in all these places that you've gone and just mentorship and guidance?
Honestly, no mentor. I promise you. It sounds ridiculous. But I promise I didn't. The one person who was my sounding board was my husband. But at that time, we were like still boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever. But he's quite a solid gent. So like he's very wise and really the stuff he has to say, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I don't know if I saw him as a mentor though. If that makes sense. And when I called my parents, it was just to vent. But within the legal fraternity, I don't think there was a person that I specifically said, this is my mentor. This is the person guiding me, giving me advice. Maybe from a colleague perspective, where like you go to a colleague and say, I'm in this situation or I've got this opportunity. What do you think? But even that, right, that's not really a mentor. So no, I didn't have a mentor. And I think I only understood its importance during COVID. Because during COVID, we were all like locked down and we were at home. And even the stuff, we weren't seeing people, like all the stuff you were going through alone.
Yeah.
You know, if you had to reach out to a friend if you really wanted to talk to someone. It wasn't somebody you just bumped into on the corridor and say, oh, by the way, can I ask you something quickly? You actually had to be intentional to be like, I'm going to call this person to assist me. And that's where I realized that actually mentorship is important. So I joined this mentorship program. It's called Traversing Lemon. I forgot the name. I'll give it to you and then hopefully you can put it down.
The caption.
Yeah. I signed up for that mentorship program. It was a year mentorship, and that thing opened my eyes to the importance of mentorship. At the time, I was at the Concord. So already at that time, things were already starting to shift, and I was starting to see things in a whole new, different perspective. That's when I started my YouTube channel. And in my mind, when I started my YouTube channel, was to help other kids. It was to be like, I didn't really feel like there was someone there to direct me or give me guidance. Yeah. So that's the one thing that I remember saying, I'm going to do this thing because I think it might help people if I just share the information I have or know via all the experiences that I've gone through. Yeah. It's an honest answer.
Okay. I don't think I've ever had that answer before, but it's very inspiring and interesting that you trust yourself, you trust your God, and you move accordingly. My next question to you is, having been in all these spaces that you've been in, occupying these different roles, what are you finding most interesting rather than challenging between the different generations that exist in different workspaces? With the Gen Z lawyers coming up, it's a big chat on all social media platforms. What is your advice? Because I think we are in a very instant gratification success era, whereas law tends to be quite a slow burn career. And that can be a harsh reality to the popcorn culture that we have. So to law students, to new professionals, what advice do you have about navigating the generational expectations in the workplace on the backdrop of work-life balance? And I'd like to hone your answer specifically to working in practice because you're a senior associate.
Yo, these questions.
Sorry.
What advice would I give? Yo, it's hard, eh? But one thing you can never take away, especially in private practice, is that to be successful, you have to work hard, right? And you have to serve your time. Yeah. There's really nothing more. Like, I really go by and it's in a way, sometimes I'm like, am I harsh for thinking this? But if you feel that private practice is too rough for you, then it's not for you. Then you must find the environment that's for you. But you can't get into an environment like private practice and say, I think it should be like this. Private practice is what it is, and it's always been like that. And it's probably not going to change because one person came in and said, this is too much. Like, then you're not in the right environment, if that makes sense, right?
100%.
And it's the nature of the game for private practice. So you can't take away hard work, right? Now, there's this notion that hard work doesn't mean you must come in at 7 and leave at a certain time or be available on weekends and et cetera, et cetera. What about work-life balance? And I believe that. I really do. But I think we must learn to sort of understand when it is appropriate and when it's not. It can't be all the time, right? I'm a very big person on work-life balance, even though I have come to accept that maybe it doesn't exist. There are going to be times where you're always working, and then there's going to be a down period, and that down period might be a short period, but that's the balance in my mind. You know what I mean? Like, you can't say 50-50. There is no 50-50, especially in private practice. And I think also that depends largely on the area of law that you practice in, because somebody else will 100% disagree with me and say, no, but I do have work-life balance. And I would say that depends on the amount of work that you have, the team that you work in, how many people are there. There's so many factors that play a role in that. So, but the general notion for me is that there is no work-life balance. You have to work hard, but you get a downtime. And when you get that downtime, rest, right? Don't push for there must be enough. There must be equal downtime as hard work. I don't think it exists in private practice. So I think the lawyers that are coming in now must understand that that's what's going to be expected of them when they get into practice. And that if they are trying to change it, maybe they are in the wrong environment. You just need to find an environment that actually suits them. And they exist. So find it. That's like...
I think that's a very important line. They exist. And I think this platform will show you that they exist because there's such a vast pool of professionals who have been interviewed here, who have very diverse CVs, very diverse working backgrounds. So when I started listening to this podcast, I didn't know there was compliance. I just thought I could be an attorney or an advocate. So I do think you can find an environment that works for you. But I do think serving your time is important. There's something about being diligent to the season of either doing your articles, either being in practice. There's something about it that really does hone some level of character in your career. And some propensity to stretch yourself even further.
100%.
So yeah, everybody serve their time
Serve
or
your
find
time.
the right environment for you, because it
exists.
does exist.
It exists.
I'd like to draw you back to 2021, which is when you did your first interview with us at Sisters in Conversation. Where are you now professionally, other than being a senior associate in M&A? What has changed, or what can you tell us you appreciate more or less about the law now? You find value in your journey about from the time which you did the interview?
Yeah. These are hard questions.
I'm so sorry.
They are hard questions. So at that time, I probably, in a way, I might sound like I contradict myself, but I think I understand myself, and I hope I have the best, I can articulate myself properly. The first thing I want to say is that I think back then I was very fixated on, and I just said it now, find the right environment. But that doesn't mean you must jump around.
Okay.
Right. And at the time I was like, yeah, if you must jump from one place to the other, you must do it. Right. But now what has really developed in me is this notion of serving your time. So one thing that's changed in how I view the law and actually how successful you can be and how far you can go is there's value in staying in one place, right? It actually sometimes doesn't help to move from one job to another, because what I found with me is that then it takes long to get to the next big step or the next milestone or the next promotion, because you have to sort of start proving yourself at each and every point that you go. Like each job that you go to, you have to now prove yourself again.
Yeah.
So you're starting from zero. Unless, for whatever reason, they're happy to onboard you a level higher. Most of the time, the only compensation you get is monetary. But in terms of your actual title, you sort of stay in the same place. I was happy with it because I was just trying to find the perfect place. But I think I've since developed and realized that I don't really necessarily think there's the perfect place or the perfect area of law to specialize in. And that there's no specific passion in a particular area of law. If you like the law, you'll enjoy any of it, obviously. That's the thing that I have since come to appreciate about it. And I learned that specifically in 2021 when I was at the court. So, yeah, there's value in staying in one place. That's probably the biggest thing that I've learned. The second thing that I think I can mention about my journey is that even though I moved from one place to the other, I do realize that has really opened up my networking community. It's huge. Like, I know so many people in the legal area or in the legal field. I'm so confident in the people that I know that if I had to start a law firm tomorrow, I'm not afraid. Like, honestly, I'm just like, you know what? I appreciate that I know all these people. Like, really, 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 like, and you can't take that away from me. I know so many people, and I enjoy that. I enjoy that I can instantly think of, oh, this person is great for this thing. You know, if there's someone that I need from a nonprofit perspective in the legal, in NGO, like, I know exactly where to go. If there's someone I want to contact in an SOE in the legal department, I know exactly where to go, you know?
Yeah.
And I appreciate that I got to meet all these people and expand my network via the fact that I moved from one job to the other. Like, my nest is not small and it's quite big. And that's helped me even in getting some of the jobs that I've gotten in the past. It's because of my networking space. So yes, there are other ways of networking, but the way I've done it, even though I'm saying it's good to stay in one place, it's definitely assisted me. So if you can, and if you are a person who feels like maybe this is not the right environment for me, I'd particularly give this advice to CAs who are working in a law firm. Once you finish your articles, and if you get retained, try stay there at least for 2 to 3 years, right? Because then you develop the actual skill. And by the end of the 3 years, then you know something. Even if you feel like this is terrible, I don't really want to be here. Like what you said, serving your time has a benefit, right? So at the end of that 3 years, at least there's something you're going to go away from. You're going to take with you when you go from that environment, right? And there will be more clarity when you make that decision that I'm leaving. And you'll know exactly why you're leaving.
Yeah.
And you'll feel more confident even when you leave, because at least you know you're employable by somebody else, because you know something in the area that you've been specializing or practicing in. I think for me, my most frustrating thing that I found when I left my first job was that I knew nothing. So when I was trying to get a job, like I didn't know what I was trying, who's going to employ me and for what? Because I don't really know anything besides IP. And I didn't want IP. But even though I didn't want IP, I realized that I still needed to serve my time in private practice. And if it was IP, then that's where I needed to be, in private practice. So I'm happy I ended back in private practice. And when I went to the court, I was like, I'm going back to private practice because I still don't know enough. And I'll stay there. And that's why I'm still there now, like even now, because I feel like that's where you learn, like that's where you grow. That's where the skill develops. That's where you become confident. That's where you then are like brave enough to make all these other moves. If you do it too prematurely, I don't know, like where you might end up. So I think those are the two things that I would say, that very important that you serve your time. We've said this so many times now. And that if you can, try and find a way in which you can network. That's not how I did it, right? Because there is value in staying in one place. And I know it's one thing that every time I watch my old videos, I'm like, I wish I didn't say this to kids, because they might think it's okay to just jump around. But I have evolved as a person over time. In fact, I've evolved from last year. Every year I evolve as a person. I learn something new every year. And it's good like to come back on these platforms to share and say, this is where I think I'm at now.
Yeah, I think it's very good to also just self-introspect. I think your career also always needs to just take a step back. And like you say, take as many unemotional decisions as possible.
Yeah.
And I do think you can be drawn in the difficulty of the season where you are like as a CA, you're like, oh, I hate articles. I need to get out of here. Or when you transition to a first level of a position like an associate, you're like, oh, this is painful.
Terrible.
Terrible. I need to get out of here. But as you let the passage of time occur, you can tell that you get better at it, and you can sort of make more unemotional decisions as the head gets clearer.
Yeah, just want to say, right, even if you leave as like a first year or second year associate, I would say if you get an opportunity to do something else, try keep it still within private practice, or at least if an environment where you're still going to grow.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not saying you must be in private practice for 3 years after you are done with your articles. I'm saying as long as you're in an environment where you're continuously developing and your skill is always being sharpened.
Yeah.
That's really the gist of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. On a more personal note, your philanthropy. How did you get into it? Number one. Number two, do you find yourself tapping into the lawyer in those spaces as well? You mentor. You have fellowship. You tutor. Do you find yourself tapping into the lawyer in those spaces when you are serving in a very different capacity?
Yeah. How I got into it? Well, it was my dad's passion to start a nonprofit that focuses on youth issues and needs in the township community, because his church is in Mabopane, which is a township in Pretoria, and he's been there for over 35 years, approaching 40. So he's sort of very aware of like the issues that are surrounding township communities. And he wanted to find a way to actually get to those issues. There's so many of them, right? Anyway, because it was his thing, obviously I'm going to get involved in one way or another. But then I got very, very involved. And he was like, I kind of don't need to do anything. You guys can
take over.
Yeah, you guys can take over. So the question about whether or not I find myself tapping into the lawyer all the time. Absolutely all the time. I mean, from the legal documents that we have to draft or have to have in place, or, communication with SARS, like currently we're trying to register as a PBO. All of that stuff is sort of on my shoulder. And I'm glad that I was saying to someone the other day that I hated corporate so much when I was still growing and learning about the profession. I said I never want to do anything corporate or commercial. And now it's helping me in so many ways.
Yeah.
So I'm so appreciative of the fact that I know how to do these things and it doesn't have to cost us much, right? Then when it comes to the actual kids, because they come with all sorts of issues, someone will say, some of the stuff is sensitive, but my dad raped me, right?
Yeah.
And you're just sitting there like, oh my God, like, where do we even start? Yeah. But the lawyer kicks in, right, to be like, this is a crime and we got to do something about it. Where do we start? I'm not a criminal lawyer, but I've got criminal law friends or people who know at least about it. So I can go to them and ask them, how do you think I should approach the situation? And it's not only with the nonprofits, it happens just generally. People who know me, who are sort of less privileged, will come to me and say, Atlegang, I've got this issue. Can you help me? I've got a property dispute or whatever. Like, because we live in I'm sort of surrounded by people who come from a township community. There's so many issues. Most of them are legal issues. It gives me an opportunity to give back without having to say, I want this in return. In fact, I want those people so much. I'm like, tell me your issue. I'm going to try and direct you. If I can't help you, I will get you in contact with somebody who can. So I find that I'm doing a lot of legal work. Sometimes I'm like, there's so much work to do that I wish I had more time in a day or I didn't have my current job. And it's not a nice thing to say, right? But I feel like I'd still be occupied if I didn't have my normal 8 to 5 job because of the amount of work that we have to do in the community. It's extremely fulfilling, I won't lie. It's tiring, but it's extremely fulfilling. And I think at this point where we are, because it's still fairly new, we just need hands. We need people who can assist, but we don't even know where to start when it comes to people volunteering. I mean, most of the time we approach the people in my dad's church to be like, guys, can you help? We need help with this or whatever. But there's so much work. Oh my God, it's insane. And it's crazy to me that even though I grew up in the township community, that I wasn't aware of all these issues that people were facing on a day-to-day until I got on the ground and started engaging with young people and understanding that these people's issues are so many. Like, sometimes I'm like, we're so privileged, we don't even realize it. And we're just so stuck in our own bubbles and our own privilege, exactly, that we don't know how good we have it. Yeah. We have it so good. So, I mean, I could say a lot about it, to be honest. And I'm just grateful that I get to use the law, like what I learned in school, in a way where it can benefit others without having to get remunerated for it. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Can people find you on Instagram if they want to contribute any?
Please.
Volunteering services to the various organizations you're involved with. Okay, we will leave your your handle in the caption.
Thank you.
My last question is, with everything that you do, being in practice is not an 8 to 5.
No.
For those who know, they know. And all the other interests that you tap into and the other commitments that you so diligently give and dispense yourself of, how do you self-preserve? How do you self-preserve? As fulfilling as all these things that you do are, how do you self-preserve?
I guess time out, right? You have to, you have to. Time out is very important. We just, we had a youth day event for the NPC, and that took everything out of me. Like, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it. I cried. I literally, because just the planning, it was a lot. And after that, I told my dad, because I also serve at church, sorry, I'm really getting emotional.
I'm sorry.
I said, I can't. I need a time off. So I'm off for the month of July, off from my church activities, that is, because I still have my 8 to 5, right? I still have to go to work. And the NPC, even though we don't have a running event at the current moment, there are still things that need to be done.
Yeah.
And then I also have church activities. Thank you. So it's a lot. Oh, it's a lot. Sorry.
It's okay.
I'm so triggered. Yo.
Oh, Askisi.
Sorry. Yo, I'm so triggered. It was tough.
Yeah.
Sorry.
We can take a moment.
Sorry. Yo, that event took everything from me. It was a lot. But it wasn't just the event. Like, these kids are wild. Like, you try to help them, but they don't care. Like, it's a lot. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, it took so much from me. Everyone at work was like, you look like a zombie. Like, I'm not okay, guys. Like, I'm not okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me try to get back into it. Okay. So as I was saying, time out. Like, time out is not something I'm used to because I'm so used to like
going.
Things have to happen, like things have to continue. But I was like, I really can't do everything. And I because I felt like I had so much in me to give. I was very willing to go out and go the extra mile and everything. Mind you, I've got my own mentorship program for law students as well. So I was trying my very best to just juggle everything. And then at some point I realized like I'm just doing too much. Like it's just a lot. And as much as I can't really take time off from helping people because there's always somebody who has a need. Like I really need time out.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is why I run. This is why I do high rocks. All these things that people are like, why are you doing that? It's like, it's my escape.
Yeah.
It's definitely my escape. Otherwise, I'm just going to sit at home and think, fudge, this thing has to be done with the NPC. And then I've got this deadline at work and it's just too much, right?
Yeah.
I think people understand that about me now. And I'm actually starting to be more withdrawn, actually, from like bigger circles because I know that there's other things that I'm dealing with and people don't know. Atlegang is actually carrying all these things. But that's because I truly believe that despite what's going on, you must still show up as your best self and best version wherever you are. But also you can't pour from an empty cup. So time out is so important. So I'm taking the month of July off, not from work, but from my other activities so that it can give me an opportunity to just recuperate and just be like, okay, fine, we can continue now. And whenever I feel like I need time out, I'll take it.
Yeah.
But what I won't do is give up. Like I'm not that type of person. I just know when I need a reboot.
Yeah.
Time out and then I'll be fine. So that's like the simple answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be complicated. And I think in its simplicity, it's powerful enough. And thank you for your vulnerability. I think a lot of people need to have that discernment of this is where you stop, take a step back and self-preserve so that you can come back bigger, come back stronger and sort of face the challenges with a better headspace. Because I think we do sort of dwindle into thinking we can do it all, but we're overwhelming ourselves. Atlegang, thank you for being with us today. Thank you for sharing your journey with us again and taking us through your growth and your evolution as a person. We will put your caption in the bio. As usual, thank you to all the listeners of Sisters in Conversation. Shout out to Ostebello. She always gives me a shot at a gig. And I hope to be sitting in this seat again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.